I want to thank our reader, Pat Faveron, for the fabulous reading. She always does a wonderful job. And thanks also to Gary Lynn Floyd and our music team for the fabulous music to support the message today. Today, as we continue on our wonderful 2024 spiritual journey, we're blessed to have Reverend Larry King doing the message. But before I turn it over to him, here's your question for the week. What is the one choice you might make today to know your sense of self is determined by where you're focusing your consciousness? And now enjoy Reverend Larry as he does this week's message.
Hey everybody, so glad to be with you again today. You can see we're filming at nighttime here in Portland. You get the night edition of the Sunday message. Thanks to Reverend Larry, the other Reverend Larry, for inviting me to speak. I was particularly interested in helping out with Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. It was a book that I'd used at the center in Portland a couple of years ago and has some of my favorite material in it. In particular, she's letting me cover chapter 14 for you this week, letting go of false solidity. It's a big topic, but I think where I want to start is the Oscars. So I'm actually recording this a couple of weeks ago, and last night was the Oscars. I was reminded of that old actor joke. So many years ago, biblical epic star Victor Mature was denied membership in a conservative country club because he was an actor. They didn't think he was stable. Well, Victor is reported to have said, "Hell, I'm no actor, and I've got 30 movies to prove it." So what makes a good actor? What makes a good movie? Well, what we learned last night during the Oscars is it's more than just a role, it's more than just a script. It's when the movie is so compelling that you can lose yourself in it. You suddenly don't feel that you're in a theater or feel that you're at home. It's so vivid that you're right there. Even though it's a made up story, you feel yourself right in it. You may identify with one of the main characters, or you may be putting yourself in the place of a character or just in the plot. But you suddenly lose track of the world around you and who you are. And for an hour or two, you are transfixed into that movie. That's what makes a good movie, when you suspend for a moment your own life and you suddenly see another life. Well, what if I told you that you're such a good actor in your own life that you have yourself fooled? You think that there's a solidity to who and what you are and how you show up in the world, and information about your families and your jobs and your retirement. And that solidity is there in a way that you'd almost do anything to protect that role, much in the same way in one of those compelling movies when the hero is determined to find out who done it, or to save someone or something like that. It's that level of commitment that we see in movie roles, and it's that amount of commitment that you have into the roles that you've set yourself into. Now, you might be wondering, well, what are you talking about? I'm not playing a role, I'm living my life. But I'd like you to consider a minute. I think most of us have a variety of roles that we have some investments in: the role of mother or father, the role of a worker, our jobs, the role of a husband or a wife, of a son, of a daughter, the role of American. What is it to be an English speaker? What is it to be American? Lately, of course, in the news a lot, the role of Democrat or Republican. What do those roles stand for? And what do we find important about them? With each one of these roles, and there's hundreds more. In fact, I'll give you an advance warning. I have a bit of homework for you that I hope you'll enjoy, that has to do with the roles that you have used to define yourself. But more importantly, with each one of the roles, we have a definition of what it means to us and how we work within that role. So let me give you an example. So, of course, one of my roles over the course of my life was a son. And in that role, of course, I had a relationship with my mother predominantly. My father died when I was young. But gosh, what a loving and wonderful relationship I had with my mom. I would say it was one of those at least 75% filled with good things and only occasional blips now and then when I thought, oh, okay, here we go. I'm sure you know what I mean. Uh, but yet, if you think about it, that role also has some limits to it, right? Are we not beholden to our parents? Isn't there an implied responsibility there when they get older? Isn't there applied responsibility there maybe for finances? Now, I was lucky. My mom was independent in her finances, and I did not have to support her as she got older. But that's not true for a lot of people. Don't we assume that that role of child has some strings attached, right? Not only pluses, but sometimes the negatives too. And more important, I think, than the roles is how did those roles come about? Did we make them up? Or were most of them made up by other people and society? Now, here's a big question for you. If these roles are mostly made up by other people, we learned a lot of them from our parents, right? And we learned some from our teachers. We learned some from television. We learned some from people on the street. But most of them we just didn't make up on our own. Most of them, in a way, we were trained to accept as the truth. And when we took on those roles, then we took on the idea that those were the truth for us. And we've even spent a fair amount of time making sure that those definitions hold, right? Have you ever found yourself in a room, maybe with other families, and you've become critical around how other people raised their children, as though it's any of our business, right? But still, there's that little part of us that says, oh, no, that's not the way that you should raise children. The role of mother or father is ... So all of these roles, of course, hold us within a box. And that box generally has an upside, like the role of son that I said, but generally that downside also. And in any case, the ideas that we have about ourselves, just like Victor Mature in my joke, they define how we act and how we live in the world. But my question is, how is that sitting with you? Aren't some of these roles things that you wished were different? Take another example. Madison Avenue, for instance, has largely defined how we're supposed to look in the world, the kind of clothes that we're supposed to wear, the kind of body shapes and types we're supposed to have. Most of us have an image, if we're women, of being on the small side and wearing, I don't know, small sizes and keeping our weight down and being able to wear tight shoes. And I mean, the list goes on, right? The fashion industry in Madison Avenue has a very clear picture of what it is to be a woman. And increasingly, that's true for men as well, right? Now we're all expected to have six packs and to be rugged but sensitive and to be well groomed and to pay attention to our hair products and so on. Madison Avenue has really started copying over a lot of the expectations of women and are now putting them on men for how we should look and how we should behave. And of course, it's all made up. Is there anything wrong with having a stouter body? Is there anything wrong with curly hair or straight hair? Is there anything wrong really with being bald? And yet, oh my gosh, not a good thing if you're a gentleman, right? It's not portrayed as being handsome in the media. And yet, why shouldn't it be? What could be wrong with male pattern baldness, right? It affects a huge number of men. So all of these standards, they're made up, and they're not even really made up by us as individuals. We just kind of have taken on those ideas and allowed them to be seen as true for us, when really We haven't even really thought about them too much. Well, I want to wade into the book a little bit here. Michael Singer says, your sense of self is determined by where you're focusing your consciousness. Now, the good news there, of course, as Ernest Holmes would say, you can change your thinking and change your life. But the flip side of that is most often we're focusing our consciousness on those roles and rules as they were set about by other people, by society, by Madison Avenue, and so forth. In a way, we're trapped into little boxes defined by those roles. What is it to be a good husband? What is it to be a good parent? What is it to be a good Democrat or a good Republican? What is it to be, well, you name it, a good worker of a certain type? Any of those roles and responsibilities, we hold ourselves accountable to those definitions of those things that were generally made by other people. So my first question to you all is, where do you put your focus? And there are a couple things that occur to me. One is often we put our focus into pleasing others, into keeping people happy. Typically in marriages, typically in friendship relationships, often is it not true that we're trying to keep other people happy? I would suggest to you that's actually their job. We all have the capacity for being happy. It's not based on what the world is doing to us. It's based on our reaction to the world and that sense of being in the right place at the right time. It's our own ability to bring forth happiness, in fact. And if that's true, then why do we spend so much time in pleasing others? Now, I don't mean that we should be harsh to others. Certainly, I don't mean that we, should be aloof or anything but loving and happy people. But that's different than pleasing others, doing things that are distasteful for us simply because it would make other people happy is an extraordinarily bad idea. It's us not being authentic to who we are. It's not letting others know what's really important to us. It's just keeping on and moving on and keeping other people happy. The other thing that we put our focus on that can be equally dangerous is keeping things the same. Have you ever found yourself bristling a little bit when things are changed on you? You know, it used to be a kind of a running joke at the Center for Spiritual Living in Portland. For our main Christmas holiday, I would come in the week before and with some friends, we'd rearrange the chairs and put them in kind of a stadium seating so that everybody could see what was going on in the sanctuary on Christmas Eve. And so we did carols and had some fun things, and everybody was in festival seating in kind of a round shape. So everybody was seeing everybody. But I got to tell you, right? People were used to having their seats, and they would come in on Christmas Eve and you could see their faces. Their faces would be like this. Where's my chair? And it isn't that within about half an hour they didn't love seating that way, but the initial reaction was, why can't we keep things the same? But I have something for you to think about. If we keep things the same, are we not going to keep not only the things we like the same, but also the things we don't like the same? Is it not going to be keeping things the same at the expense of maybe finding out better things? Another of my favorite example here is a favorite restaurant that my partner Daniel and I like to go to. It's a Thai restaurant. And I got to tell you, everything is good on that menu. And yet I would say the first year we went there, I had the same thing every time. I had pad thai because it was excellent. It was super. And a part of me was like, no, I don't want to take a chance on the other things on the menu. I just want to keep it the same. Big mistake. There were better things on the menu. And I think that's true about life itself. If we're invested in keeping things the same, we're going to miss out on a world of wonderful new things that we've never tried. The last thing that we do, I think often, where we put our focus is just in making things safe, just avoiding conflict, just making sure that we're not doing things where we're on the, I don't know, on the risky side, whether it be investments or in the social area of, maybe meeting new people or plunging ourselves into different social situations. Maybe it's playing it safe by not doing the things that scare us a little bit, like public speaking. Or maybe trying out for a choir if we don't think our voice is very good. And yeah, I'm talking about some of you. Aren't there things that you would like to do, but you're just a little afraid that you might not get it right or that you might be embarrassed? Okay, so to recap in this area, where do we put our focus if it's true that our sense of self is determined by where we're focusing our consciousness? That's back to Michael Singer, Untethered Soul. Where are we putting our focus? If it's in pleasing others, if it's in keeping things the same, it's in making things safe for ourselves and not trying new things, we're really just allowing the world to run us. We're simply giving over our creativity. We're giving over our curiosity. We're giving our chance at a more powerful life, a more fun life, a more loving life. And we're simply giving that over to other people and to society in general. We're giving it over to Madison Avenue and the people that control our advertising. We're giving it over to the television as it portrays what a happy family is supposed to be like, right? We're simply saying, I don't care enough about myself that I'm going to transcend these roles. I'm going to transcend these ideas. Okay. Well, I know that that's not you. I know that that's not where you want to be. So where should we put our focus? Michael Singer has a very interesting idea here, and it harks back a little bit to the Buddhist tradition. He would say to put your focus on what's happening right now, to try as best we can to disregard the past. That's the setup of all those roles and responsibilities that we've taken on that may or may not have any reality for us anymore, and also not to worry about the future, but to simply put our focus on what's happening right now. Now, in that place, of course, we're going to want to have fun with our friends. We're going to put an interest in listening and speaking. We're going to put a focus on our partners, whatever's happening right now. One of the reasons I'm recording this at night is I was out in the greenhouse today, most of the day, just enjoying myself, transplanting some seedlings and doing work in the greenhouse, right? And so my focus was just on enjoying that moment, on getting my hands dirty, on seeing the life around me. I wasn't worried about whether I was going to find time to do this talk. I figured it would be okay if it was at night. I wasn't worried about what's happened in the past. I was simply focused on that present moment and enjoying it tremendously. And so, where do you put your focus? Where would you like to put your focus? Well, I'm going to sneak into the homework right now. And you might even have been guessing what it is. I call it the Who Am I game. The Who Am I game is a simple one that you can do using either note paper, or my favorite is those 3x5 cards that you've probably seen before. And what I do was on a segment of paper or on one of the 3x5 cards, I ask the question, who am I? And I write down one role or one feature of myself on each area on a piece of paper or on a 3x5 card. And I just write more and more and more. Who am I? I'm a son. Who am I? I'm a minister. Who am I? I'm a husband. Who am I? And so on and so forth until really exhaust yourselves, right? Who am I? I'm an American. Who am I? I'm an English speaker. I mean, really, really be exhausted in it. Yeah, I want you to end up with maybe 20 or 30 cards. And then I want you to write below that title of who you are, the things that you like about it and the things that you don't like about it. Then I would like you to consider building a new role called your authentic self. So it's almost back to the Oscars for a minute, right? I'm asking you to write your own movie that you're the star of. And I want you to build this new role. We'll call it your authentic self that's just made up of the things you like about your other roles. Now, think about that for a moment. What do you like about your work? What do you like about your marriage? What do you like about raising children or grandchildren? What do you like about being an American? What do you like about speaking the English language? What do you like about your house? What do you like about your life? Simply leave all the negatives behind and create this new role of your creation, not something that Madison Avenue has created for you, not something that was what your parents told you you ought to be. Who am I? So that's the game. And remember, you're going to write down all those roles, what you liked about them, what you disliked about them, and then build a new role called your authentic self that's just made up of all the things that are authentically you. Okay, so I'm getting ready to close now, but I want to do a brief recap here. First of all, a key teaching from this week is your sense of self is determined by where you're focusing your consciousness. Where are you focusing your consciousness? Are you focusing on it on the present moment, enjoying your life, being honest and good with your friends? Or are you focusing on what it means to be a good father? Are you focusing it on one of those roles that are just made up anyway, someone else's script to a movie that isn't even yours? Your sense of self is determined by where you're focusing your consciousness. Where are you focusing your consciousness? Well, I'm going to close today, of course, with a prayer, but I'd also like to do just a brief summary from this chapter. This is a quote from Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, on page 216. What it means to live spiritually is not to participate in this struggle. And by this struggle, he means that identifying with all of these roles and ideas that were created by other people that we just seem to hang on. He goes on to say it means that the events that happen in the moment belong to the moment. They don't belong to you. They have nothing to do with you. You must stop defining yourself into relationship to what happened and just let them come and go. So we focus on living in the moment, but we don't have that moment define us. If something bad happens, it does not define us. If something wonderful happens, likewise, it doesn't define us. We get to create each moment on our own and live it fully. So let us pray. There is one power, there is one presence, there is only this one thing. And what I know about this one thing is I choose to call it God. And God is all powerful, all loving, all gracious, everywhere present. There is only God and God and God. And I know that means me. I know that I am part of the divine intelligence that is God, and that divine intelligence helps me to determine where I focus my consciousness. And I choose to put that consciousness on this present moment, speaking to some of the people that I care about, recording on this Zoom session, really the life and the love that God allows to flow through me and to you. And as it is true for me, I know it is true with everyone within the hearing of my voice. Each person has the option of focusing their consciousness on the things that are important in that present moment, not allowing us to be dictated by the past, not dwelling overly on the future, but in this blessed present moment, just accepting the goodness of God as it is present. And so for this day and each day forward, I know that each of us has that ability to live more in that present moment, to focus our consciousness on the things that we desire, to focus our consciousness of the goodness of life and the fullness of life and the lovingness of life. And for this, I give great thanks. For this, I recognize in the power of God that all is well. And so I release this prayer into the action of the law itself, that law that always says, yes, my beloved, and you are my beloved. We let it go, and together we say, and so it is. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's my honor to help out Reverend Larry and to be with you. Take care now. Bye.
I just adore Reverend Larry's sweet nature that shows up in his talks. I've really enjoyed his message, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I know that you plan to do that home play that he gave you because it really, truly will help you go deeper into the message. And Reverend Larry did such a beautiful prayer that let me just take this time to remind you about your affirmation for the week. How is it I so willingly and effortlessly know my sense of self is determined by where I am focusing my consciousness? And your challenge from me this week is to write out those roles on your paper and create your role as your authentic self. I want to say how very grateful I am for all the contributions that continue to come in and allow us to have special music and special events like this coming Sunday when we're going to be having an Easter celebration. Just a reminder, enjoy our offertory song.